Hello everyone, welcome to this final video discussion in reading visual arts. In this video discussion, I will talk about the chapter 8 on the media as spectacle. So in this lecture, I will discuss how media has manipulated the visual realities of different visual regimes and or of us humans. So let's talk about media first. The field which is most active in facilitating and naturalizing the visual regimes of normalization and capitalization is definitely the media. So this industry or this field has been one of the many fields, but among all the fields that are present in our society nowadays, this is the field which is most active in terms of controlling the way we see things, the way we perceive the different visual realities that we have in our society. It is impossible to make sense of and why people think, behave, and come to see the world without media. So, for example, if we watch, let's say, a news about a certain social issue, definitely we could not create a clear picture of that social issue if not because of media. Media gives us more understanding about certain things that are happening around us, and media also provides us the details that we need to see for us to have visual clarity in terms of how we see or how we perceive the things around us. However, the unfortunate thing is that since media has been so active and involved in providing all these visual realities to us, there is now this control, there is now this monopoly or manipulation in terms of how we visualize these things, specifically those things or visual realities that are proliferated through the tri-media, such as print ads, radio, and also television. That is apart from the existence of social media. So we already have a lot of social media platforms which also affect the way we visualize things. So according to the board in 1967, spectacle is not a collection of images, but it is a social relations between or among people mediated by images. So the board here in 1967 points out that spectacle is not something as extravagant performances. Because of media, people are somehow connected or related because of what they see. So for example, when you are watching news and then you call your friend to ask if he or she has seen or heard about the news on the recent plane crash of soldiers in Sulu, your friend will definitely or can definitely say something about it because that news has been widely spread not only on the Philippine TV but also on social media. And so it's easier for your friend to also understand what you are asking about because media already delivered that visual reality towards your friend. So this goes to say also that even if, for example, you are afar from your friend, you can easily communicate and understand each other because you have already that understanding about what you see on the television or different technologies such as cell phones, mobile phones, or computers. In short, it refers to the relationship of people because of media. So when you say society of the spectacle, this has something to do with the built or connected relationships that we have with other people because of the presence of media around us. And when I say media, I am not talking about television or radio broadcast only. I am also talking about print ads, newspapers, and even social media, which has become one of the best platforms also to spread news. And then John Crary also added in his discussion of the board's influential book, The Society of the Spectacle, with the construction of conditions that individuate, immobilize, and separate subjects In this way, attention becomes key to the operation of non coercive forms of power. Television and the personal computer are methods for the management of attention. So, this is where the important role or the vital function of technology comes in. So even if they stimulate the illusion of choices and interactivity, technology becomes handy in delivering or channeling the message, sometimes the universal message towards its audience. As a matter of fact, media offers various television shows or programs, be it drama or advertisements or campaigns. So whatever that is one form of persuasion through the use of media. So we easily believe on the things we see on media because of the variety of media that we see on television or that we hear on radio. For example, how do we believe or how do we become convinced with the effectiveness of a certain product? So, the first thing that comes into our mind is that when a product is advertised by a known celebrity, or a TV icon, automatically our thinking is that maybe that product is indeed effective because it is advertised or it is recommended by that celebrity or by that artist. So in that case, media offers us now the understanding that that visual reality should be looked in this manner, should be considered or should be understood in that fashion. However, through media, the power of persuasion becomes smooth. And in fact, the way we perceive things, the way we believe in things, this all becomes voluntary. We do things voluntarily. I mean, the media collectively, let's say the television, the radio, the print ads, even social media, did not coerce us to believe in, let's say, in an advertisement. These media platforms also did not force us to be convinced with how they presented this, let's say, products or services. It's up to our understanding of the visual reality, and it's how we form our own visual reality so that we become convinced or we confirm whatever we see on these media platforms. So, let's talk about the media and imagined communities. People in every field are disciplined and trained. So, whether you are from the health industry or the education industry, naturally, people are disciplined or trained in a specific field. In the previous chapter, specifically in chapter 6, we learned about the reason of state, which referred to the way the state, through its bureaucracies, institutions, policies, and discourses, intervened in and attempted to manage the lives and activities of its main resource, the people. So we know that through the policies implemented by the government, we are also being controlled, right? Through the through how certain products, through how certain visual realities are represented by media, our mindset or thinking of certain things is also controlled. In the 19th and particularly the 20th centuries, this process was often central to the creation of the nation state, where various groups of people, often culturally, ethnically, and geographically different, were interpolated into what Benedict Anderson calls an imagined community. So the imagined community here is that, let's say, if you are a doctor, you know your demeanor as a doctor, how you should portray or project your reality as a doctor towards the society. And other doctors in your field also know the same. That means to say that you have that universal understanding as to how you portray your visual regime or your reality towards other societies. In that community where you think you have that universality of thinking or reasoning or of perceiving as to how you should portray yourselves towards or towards the other members of other societies is called the imagined community. So let's say you have Dr. A here, Dr. B, and Dr. C. There are three doctors. Dr. A thinks that he should portray himself as someone who is decent, Dr. B sees himself as someone who is professional and so he needs to be formal. Dr. C here thinks that since he is a doctor, he needs to stick with his oath as a doctor. He has to consider also the ethics of being a doctor. Now, even if these three doctors are totally different individuals, the fact that they have universal understanding as to how they should show themselves towards the rest of the members of the community, as to how they should project their reality being doctors to the society, they share the same understanding. It seems like they share the same community. Okay? And that community is called the imagined community. So, when we talk about media and imagined communities, one concept that we need to understand is the concept of interpolation. Interpolation is the constitutive process where individuals acknowledge and respond to ideologies, thereby recognizing themselves as subjects of that imagined community. So, for example, Dr. A thinks that he should act this way because he's a doctor. And Dr. B thinks the same. Same goes with Dr. C. That means these three doctors, doctors A, B, and C, share the same principles, share the same understanding of how they should show their visual reality to the public. And that unison, that universality that they have means that they also share the same ideologies. And interpellation involves the process of recognizing and accepting the ideologies being shared within this imagined community. Imagined community is a group of people who, even if they have never met, belong to a community with similar interests. So, as what I mentioned a while ago, there is an actual community, let's say your profession being doctors. You have the physical community composed of doctors in the field. But you also have the imagined community. This imagined community is something that you cannot see. It's something that you cannot touch as well, and it's not evident through your eyes. And so, imagined communities are there to remind also that physical communities are not enough. There has to be this sense of universality where all members should be able to recognize and accept or embrace the ideologies shared within that imagined community. Okay? And then we also have the imperative to communicate. Whoever you are, whatever your advocacy is, if you have access to media, you can always appeal to the public even if you come from an influential family or clan or you are an ordinary citizen. Now, the problem is that media nowadays has been too controlling with how people should perceive things. Let's say the standards of beauty. For us, when you say a woman is a Miss Universe or Miss World or is a title holder in a beauty pageant, automatically we could say that that woman is beautiful. But if you are just an ordinary woman handling no title, sometimes you still need to verify based on physical appearance if a woman is really beautiful or not. Our measure of intelligence, most especially in the Philippine setting, is also determined with one's capacity to speak the English language. And so, if you hear someone speak the English language fluently, automatically our perception is that that person is an intellectual, someone who's really knowledgeable, not only with the use of language, but also with the grammatical principles of the English language. So here, media already tells us that there are certain standards for things, and that is one unfortunate thing. I think here there is this imperative to communicate to the public and make use of media as a platform not to adversely change the mentality of people, but instead to promote something positive that will, of course, instill mental and emotional growth to people. According to Lefort, mass media does not only circulate and reinforce such capitalized ideas. Through mass media, invisible ideology makes room for most groups, regardless of social standing. Political activities, ideas, differences, and relationships are all played out between the individual viewer and what is being staged as politics, interviews, chat shows, documentaries on the screen. One good example for this is the reality show here in the Philippines, Tulfo in Action. Now, we know that Tulfo has been an advocate for speedy process of achieving justice or providing justice, most especially to the oppressed, the poor ones. However, this is actually one good way of capitalizing on the issues of the Filipinos by publishing it publicly, by allowing the entire Filipino nation to view the personal issues between families or between individuals. And this form of capitalism is one good way for them to earn money, to earn profit. And yes, we understand that that show is intended to resolve issues the fastest way possible, but it's also a representation of the justice system that we have here in the country. And so we could say that whoever produced that show could also be capitalizing on the weaknesses or the vulnerabilities of the current justice system that we have here in the Philippines. It may sound like it's something that is progressive. It's something that is contributing so much, most especially in terms of achieving justice. But on one hand, here, media already gives us the visual reality that the current justice system that we have in the Philippine government is ineffective. Well, in fact, in fact, we should also consider that the justice system here in the Philippines does not work as how the justice system works in the Tulfo in Action show because these are two different entities. I mean, the Tulfo in Action show is for the sake of viewers. It's for the sake of earning monies, thousands of monies, so as to capitalize on the different issues that they are settling on Philippine TV. On one hand, the justice system that we have in the Philippines involves different processes. There are different courts involved, and there are also different offices that are concerned in the resolution of a dispute or of a legal problem or a case. But media here creates a visual reality for all of us that we should think that the justice system here in the country is a failure. Okay? So that is now the point of Lefort here. He emphasizes that mass media provides us that invisible ideology, making us believe that there are certain principles that we need to believe because that is what media projects to the people. Okay? And to end this discussion, I'd like to share these last two statements with you. First one is that the display of communication and representativeness is always loaded in terms of who speaks, who is chosen to represent different points of view, the kinds of questions that are asked, or the background information or commentary that is provided. Okay? And the main function of the media is not to interrogate meanings or stories, but to facilitate a very quick looking at and recognition of the performances that are given. So media should be there not solely to interpret what is happening, but also to provide the information, the details that the public needs to know so that they will be guided. They will become knowledgeable about these certain matters or certain issues. And also, the main function of media is definitely not to question the meanings based on the visual reality. For example, our visual reality of a Filipino beauty is someone who is simple, someone who is conservative. But because of media and the influence of other cultures, we now have a different perspective of Filipino beauty. Another thing is when we talk about, let's say, rape. In a Catholic country such as the Philippines, we believe that if you are a woman, you need to dress properly. You need to dress decently. So that means you should not show off more skin so that you would not invite people to have, let's say, negative motives towards you or negative attempts of rape towards you. But media has given us the visual reality that it should not be the case. Media has opened our eyes to the reality that if you are a woman, you are free to dress whatever, however you want. Okay? You are free to wear whatever you want. And that is one way for you to empower yourself as a woman because rape is not totally equated to what a woman wears. It's actually because once a man has the tendency to rape a woman, it's really because that man has that characteristic to rape a woman. Okay? Here, media tells us a visual reality which is totally different from our cultural reality, the visual culture that we have. The sets of principles that we have in the Philippines, which is basically a Catholic country. And so, this also makes us realize that media plays an important role in terms of the messages that are being perceived by different societies or communities. So, to conclude this lecture, I want to focus more on the, the importance of the presence of media nowadays. Media is generally there to help us become knowledgeable about different things that we might not know on our own. So there are things that we need to have proper researching first before we get to have a deep understanding on that. But with the availability and access to media, our learning, okay, our grasp of all this important knowledge comes easy. Okay, it comes handy. And so we do not have to research further anymore because we rely, okay, we rely on the various media platforms available. And we know that these media platforms are supposed to show what is based on veracity, okay, which is based on credibility or which is based on truth because that's primarily the role of media. Another thing is that we also need to remember that media should not or we should not allow media to control our visual realities. Because apart from the visual reality that is suggested or projected to us by these media platforms, we also have our own realities. The realities that are based on our daily experiences, our emotions, our thoughts, our ideas. And so, sometimes, in order for us to truly assess or evaluate whether or not a visual reality is acceptable, we also need to activate our personal realities so that we could have great judgments or evaluations of the visual realities suggested or portrayed by all these media platforms available. Okay? So I hope you were able to learn something from this brief video lecture. Now, if you have further questions about this last topic in reading visual arts, please feel free to post them in the open forum. Thank you.